Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now I'm going to be starting right back from the beginning of my 365-day course, and I'm going to go through absolutely everything that's in there, giving you some more interactive content so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about and kind of bring it to life a little bit more for you. So without wasting any time, let's jump straight into it. Now, just before we go, just a couple of quick things to say. If you like my content, if you want to help out the channel, I've got an affiliate link with Thomann. It's down in the description below. If you're buying any equipment for your studio or for your own setup, if you use that affiliate link, a little bit gets kicked back to me. It doesn't cost you anything else. It just helps put a little bit in my pocket. I've also got my Patreon. If you want to support my channel as well, then you can sign up to the Patreon. Again, it's linked down below. So let's get into this project. Now, we're right back at the beginning of my 365-day course. We're talking about balancing a mix. It's one of the 4 fundamental building blocks of producing music. You've got balancing a mix, you've got panning, EQ, and compression. And if you can master those 4 things, then you'll be well on your way to making great sounding tracks time and time again. So what we're going to do is look at this project. I'm going to talk you through exactly what's going on, but you'll find in this first video, in this first session, we're not really going to be making any noise at all, because lots of the first things that we have to do in a session are to do with kind of administrative stuff, making sure that we're set up correctly, making sure that we're in the right headspace. So let's have a little look at what we've got here in this project. I've just downloaded this multi-track session off of a website online that you can use to practice mixing. I'll put the link down below in the description. So if you want to go and grab this exact project, you can. And there are loads and loads, hundreds of other multi-track projects that you can download to practice your mixing, to practice your producing on. So that's down in the description. Now, in my mind, 90% of mixing a track or producing a track nicely is about balancing it. If things are well balanced, you'll be able to hear them clearly, and that's most of the way there. But it's a massively overlooked subject, probably because it's not very glamorous. It's not that interesting, right? Balancing a mix, or how difficult can it be? But you'd be surprised at how many people struggle to balance a mix nicely. How many times are you going, what is that? I can't quite hear what that is, or wow, that's too loud. And it's all down to balance, and it starts at the very beginning of your session. One of the most important things to get set up right at the very beginning is your listening level. Now, at the moment, I'm on headphones so that the sound doesn't get poured back down my microphone. But if you're mixing out of your monitors, out of your speakers, then you need to make sure that you're listening at an appropriate level. The reason being, if you listen too quietly, then you won't be able to hear the full frequency spectrum. When you listen quietly, you'll find that frequencies below about 500 hertz kind of disappear. And likewise, frequencies up in the upper registers as well, they kind of disappear. So you want to be making sure that you're listening at a healthy level, but without tearing your ears off. So the general kind of guidance, the general rule is somewhere between 73 to 76 dB SPL. Now, if you don't know how to measure that, just download an app on your phone, a decibel reader, and just measure the level that's coming out of your monitors in your listening position. There are loads of free apps that you can use to do it, and that will allow you to kind of calibrate your listening environment so that you're in the sweet spot. You're not listening too loudly so that you're going to be giving yourself ear fatigue really quickly, and you're not listening too quietly so that you can't hear the full frequency spectrum. Now, one really important thing to check that you're set up for straight away is that you are in 24-bit at least with your bit depth in your project. Now, I work in Logic Pro X, so I'll show you how you can set it up here. But obviously, if you're working any other DAW, if you're in Pro Tools, if you're in Reaper, Studio One, Ableton, whatever DAW, they'll all have their own way of changing the bit depth. Okay, so in Logic, it's in preferences, recording, and then right here, there's this checkbox to say record at 24 bits. Now, it's worth noting that's only for recording, okay? So it doesn't make any difference now, once I've recorded. If I check that on and off, it's not going to affect how this track sounds, okay? That's just to do with the recording. However, it will make a difference when I bounce out if I change the bit depth at that point. So you need to ensure, if you're tracking sessions, you've got that checked before you record anything. That's vital, okay? Now, before I listen to anything really in this project, I want to make sure that I'm set up with some reference material. Now, this song has kind of a a vintage Paramore-y kind of vibe to me. Let me just play you a little drop of it. Now, obviously, there's no mix on this, so it's going to sound nasty, but just to give you a little idea. Okay, that's enough of that without any mixing on it. So what I'm going to do is get this project set up with a reference straight away. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I am in fact going to send everything here that's in my project currently to a bus. I like to use bus 32 because it's the end of my first bus list there. And that's going to create this aux here, which I'm going to call my mix bus. Okay, I'm going to place that in my arrange section. All I did there was had the channel selected and I used key command Control T, and that puts that track into my mixer window here. And I'm going to actually use a plugin that I love called Reference. And this is just a straight referencing plugin. I'll show you how this works, but I'll also show you how you can do this if you don't have this referencing plugin. So obviously you don't need to go out and buy a plugin if you don't want to, but I do fully recommend this plugin if you're looking for one. So this plugin's great, right? All I need to do is grab my reference track, which I've got here, drag and drop it straight into the plugin, and it'll load it up there, okay? Now, this plugin's great because it automatically level matches the level of what you're listening to and the reference track. So I can just loop a section of my reference track here. I can play my mix. And you hear how it automatically compensates the levels so that what we're listening to in our session isn't going to be sounding really out of kind of calibration with our reference track. It's really vitally important that when you're referencing, you're listening at a comparable level so that you don't automatically think that your track sounds much worse than the reference. So that's a beautiful thing. I'll also link that plugin down in the description below if you want to go grab that. I haven't got any affiliate contact with them. I don't get any kickback. It's just a great plugin that I recommend. Conversely, if you haven't got this plugin, which you may well not do, then there's another option, okay? So instead, what I'm going to do is, again, grab that same reference track. I'm going to pull it directly into my project, okay? So I've now got that reference track in my project down here. Okay, there it is. Now, what I'm going to do is set up a loudness meter over on my stereo out. So I've got a loudness meter here, okay? Now, as you'll see, all of the channels in my project are routed out of this mix bus, okay? So they're all going here, and then my reference track is after that, and that's going straight to my stereo out. So they're both going to the stereo out, but I've got extra level of control over both those things. So I'm going to, in fact, put my stereo out back at 0. I'm going to pull the level down on my project a bit because I know at the moment it's too loud. I'm going to mute our reference track, and I'm just going to work out sort of roughly in the chorus, which is here more or less, how loud my mix is. So I'm around like 10 to 12 dB LUFS short term. So that's what I want to match with my reference. So let's pull that down. Let's mute my mix. Cool. Okay. So my reference track and my mix are now more or less matched. So all I need to do then is mute my reference, and then I can play my track. And then whenever I want to hear the reference, I can just click on the solo for the reference, and that's going to hop between my mix and the reference. Let's show you that.
What did you think I would say? You can't wouldn't.
So that allows me to A/B really quickly between my project and the reference track, which is a really great thing. So you've got two methods there for setting up your referencing in your project. Now, obviously, it's worth mentioning that any time now that you make any change with your session, if you work with the second method, then you kind of need to regain stage with your reference track, which is a bit of a pain in the backside, which is why I fully recommend a plugin like Reference that'll automatically do that gain compensation for you. It's just going to save you loads and loads of time and hassle and effort, okay? Now, the other thing that we need to set up in this project is what's called a VU meter. So I'm going to set up my VU meter here on my mix bus. Let's use this one because this is a free one. So here's a nice VU meter. It's got different skins on it if you want to change how it looks. You can calibrate the reference level, which is really important. You want to make sure if your reference level is not at -18, that's where your reference level is, because that's kind of the sweet spot for plugins. Okay, that's where plugins sound their best. Now, what I'm going to do is start using that VU meter to gain stage each of my channels. Now, rather than using the faders to gain stage each channel, I'm actually going to use a gain plugin. Now, I need to be slightly careful here because I'll need a different instance of the gain plugin depending on if I'm on a mono or a stereo channel. So any channel that is mono, I can use the same mono plugin, but any channel that is stereo, I'm going to need a stereo instance of the plugin. See how there's a slight difference because one of them has got some extra options that only are required on a stereo channel, and the mono option is much more straightforward. So I'm just going to quickly go through and chuck all those gain plugins on each channel so I've got the right one set up. So there we go, I've got the gain plugin set up on every channel. Now I'm going to go through and trim each channel so that it's hitting more or less at its loudest peaks around 0 dB VU. Okay, that's kind of the sweet spot on the VU meter. If you want to know more about why exactly that is the sweet spot, then you need to go and check out my content, which you can find all of it on my Instagram, or you can look back through all the other videos on my channel here, and you'll find out exactly why that kind of technical detail is important. But I'm not going to bother you with it right here, right now. So let's solo out this kick trigger. Now this kick trigger is a bit of a funny channel because it's not really a kick sound, but see, it's just a trigger sound, which is not actually going to be left in our mix. So I'm not actually going to trim that one. I'm going to leave it as is. Let's do our snare. I'm just going to find a little section with toms in it to trim these toms channels. Pretty nasty sounding tom right there. Got this tambourine. And you can see, I'm not being desperately accurate. I'm being quite quick, quite superficial about it. I'm just making sure that I'm in the ballpark there or thereabouts. I've got this loop over here at the back end. So let's have a little listen to that. Okay, and so on. So I'm going to go through the rest of the channels in this project and make sure they're all there or thereabouts in terms of their gain staging using this VU meter technique. Okay, so I've been through every channel and I've trimmed every channel, so I'm around about 0 dB VU on my VU meter. Now, if we have a little listen straight away to where we are, we should hear that already our mix is so much more balanced, because effectively we've tried to make sure that the relative volume of everything is more or less the same. If it's all more or less at 0 dB VU, then sort of they should all be more or less the same volume in our mix, there or thereabouts. So straight away, we've got a much more balanced starting place to work this mix from. Now, what I'd do then is I'd say, right, okay, now I can see that the loudest thing in my mix, which is the snare and the overheads here, those are clipping now. I'm clipping here from where I've kind of trimmed my my channels. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to grab everything, because everything is relative to each other now. And I'm going to say, right, okay, so I'm clipping by 2 dB there. I want to give myself a bit of space, a bit of breathing room. So I'm going to pull everything down by, let's go like 4 dB, okay? And then I can put that 4 dB back in my mix bus. And let's check now and see if we can. Cool. So I'm in a really good place now to start moving forward and balancing this mix better and more in the next episodes. So I'll be back very soon with the next part in this series. There's loads of other content on my channel, so please go and have a look around. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you know when the next part is coming out, and I'll see you very soon.